Nonetheless, the random 3 code stuck. We'd been using it for a month. The robots couldn't crack it. Even while I stared down at the damaged piece of paper Jenny Mangy had given me, I was waiting on a third-floor groan to signal that I should revolve and show Benji my swear, or maybe pump a pointer inside of my fist at him. But it was so boring, so desperately boring. If asked beforehand, I probably would have guessed that having fallen in love a couple hours earlier would have made this boredom a lot more tolerable, but the opposite was true. For now I was imagining how weak June would think me if she were to know how I sat there perpetually, hopelessly suffering. On flower-sound advice, dear scholars, to write in the cause of averting your boredom, I've avoided directly describing our hopelessness, in favor of describing how we tried to fight it. But make no mistake, our methods all failed. Even those that seemed to succeed were failures, especially those. The sound code, the time code, the random 3 code. What did they get us? How many times could you give your best friend the finger before it just quit being any fun at all? And how demanding was it to believe that doing so accomplished anything meaningful, let alone useful? Wasn't to believe that but a way to be arranged, maybe even the worst kind of arranged, the kind where you think you're overcoming the arrangement when, in fact, you're serving it perfectly, flipping a covert bird instead of screaming a curse, instead of throwing a punch, instead of throwing a rock, revolving in a chair you might have otherwise swung, cheering for underdogs and calling it action, smirking at the powerful and calling it subversive, embracing your meekness instead of getting strong. All day long we coped with the insults, with being insulted. We did what we could to avoid further insults. But that original insult, the one I mentioned earlier, the one that took a while to really understand, that we were expected to accept, all the insults the cage dealt out, all of its rules, to accept that the cage was allowed to deal them out, was the maker of rules, the only maker of rules, and rules no less, that were only there to dominate us, only there to show us that the cage made the rules. That one loomed, grew ever more evident, and ever even more powerful. And worst of all, we let its power grow. We helped its power grow. You can render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, but if you don't keep from Caesar that which is yours, Caesar will take some, and then take some more. And if you don't put a stop to it, though you won't lose everything, you can't lose everything. There's things he can't take, at least 1 or 2. The time will come when you'll think you've lost everything, when you think all is Caesar's, and by then you'll be too weak to take what's yours back, too tired to remember what was yours to begin with, and you'll end up perversely scheming for his leavings, and even more perversely grateful when you get them. The cage was no Rome, nor Bota Caesar, and if I had been a Yeshua, I wouldn't know to be ashamed, but the sound code, the time code, and the random 3 code, all of our meaningless gesticulations, these were our schemes to get Bota's leavings, and we were verging on grateful. At least I was. Ashamed is just a grateful waiting to happen. You only taste your own dignity right before you puke it up. My tongue was all sticky and dignified. Fuck, I said. A bunch of kids laughed. Who said that? Said Bota. No one told. I kept my head low, stared down at the damaged slip of paper. I felt a little better. Then I felt a lot stupid. Why should I take pleasure in getting away with something that I should have been entitled to do to begin with? Fuck it, I said. I'm the one who said it. I could have fucking gotten away with it too. Step for 3 courses, Bota said. That's 1 detention for Gary and Maccabee. 2 straps for speaking twice, and that's 2/3 to a second. Have anything more to add, Mr. Maccabee? Would you like another step? A second detention? I wanted to say something because fuck him. But what? I wanted to say a thing. Didn't mean anything. To say a thing to show him that I was breaking a rule for no other reason than to break the rule. It was written before me. We damage we, I said. What was that, Maccabee? What'd you say? Now that you've earned yourself a second detention in under a minute, you've got 3 more whole steps to burn before your 3rd. Say more, please. I wanted to say another meaningless thing, and Boca wanted me to say any old thing. No matter what I say, give me a step. And so I kept my mouth shut, choosing not to do what I wanted to do over what it was he wanted me to do, because what, scholars, really was the point? To take pleasure in getting away with something you should have been entitled to do to begin with was enough. To take pleasure in pretending to take pleasure in not getting away with it, though. That was as useful as trickling. In fact, it was trickling. And whatever did we do in the cage but trickle, except for submit? We trickled in submission, or we just submitted. I kept facing forward and stared at my walls, and I swallowed until Bolda quit trying to bait me. Right when the end of class tone sounded, the doorbell gonged. It was such an unlikely timing of sounds that no one gesticulated or rose to stretch legs and bang fists like they usually did during passing periods. Bota let the teachers out of the cage, and when he came back inside, Eliyahu was waiting behind him, and was no longer leaning, not as much at least, as he had been before. He looked more like a determined professor than a late white rabbit. It made me glad. Monitor Bota said, "Listen up." Everyone revolved. "This here is a new student named Ailey. Bota looked to Eliyahu for help. Eliyahu said, "I am," Muka said. "He's wearing a hat." The flunky said, "A kid who tells on another kid is a dead kid." "Enough," Bota said. "This is Ailey." Main man said, "But I wasn't telling the flunky. I was only just saying." "I don't see a difference," the flunky said. "That's because you're a foog," said Nakamuk. "I am not a fool," said the flunky. "Students," Bota said. "Bota," said the students. It wasn't as tough a thing to shout as it seemed, since we were between tones. Bota couldn't really do anything unless we cursed or hit each other. Eliyahu loudly depocketted his hands and placed them on his hips. His upper row of teeth shone from under the hat shadow. "No one said you were a fool," Nagamuk told the flunky. "I would never call you a fool. I like fools. Fools know that they're fools. It's a kind of wisdom. What I said was that you are a foog. And a foog. I'm a fool," said Main Man. "A fool for you. I'm a fool to do your dirty work," he said. "I'm a fool for love and an ice-cold pop on a sunny day when the ground splits open under America and the sky falls down, and so forth." But what's a foog?" the flunky said. "It's almost exactly the same thing as a fool, except I don't like you," Benji told him. "At least I'm not a fool," the flunky said. "But why does that boy get to wear a hat, though?" said Mucus. Eliyahu said, "I am." Flunky said, "Why do you get to wear a hat?" to Eliyahu. Eliyahu very suddenly removed his fedora and held it out for all the cage to look at, but no one looked at it because they were all looking at his face. Eliyahu's eyes were doing something. I hadn't ever seen eyes do before. Something I knew at once was called burning. Burning eyes is a confusing thing to call eyes like that, though. Eyes like that have lids so narrow that the only reason you can even see the sliver of light at the outside corners is the contrast against the irises, which have gone completely black with pupil. They are called burning eyes, not because they look like they are on fire, but because they make you feel like you are in danger of catching fire, like they could set you on fire from the inside if you do the wrong thing while they're seeing you. Eliyahu said, I am Eliyahu of Brooklyn, and I am a defiance. Will you try to take my hat from me? No one answered him. Eliyahu put his hat back on, and he pointed to the empty carrel to my right. He said to Bota, there is where I will sit. Bota started to say no, but then he saw he couldn't argue, except for the one on my left. The one on my right was the only carrel that was open. To reduce his loss of snat, Bota turned to welcome the teachers who entered, then went to the doorway and locked it down early. I pulled Eliyahu's chair out for him, and Nakamut flashed me almost the same crumpled face as when Enrico walked past me, except it was a little more crumpled than that first time. I whispered to Eliyahu, you got tough all of a sudden. It was a blessing to break that case, he said. I thought you are the blessing, Eliyahu said. The glass didn't cut me at all, and I thought to myself, nothing can cut me. True, it's not a thought I've had before, but this time it felt good to think it. I squeezed him on the neck, like how my father will sometimes squeeze me on the neck. And then Eliyahu did what I usually do when that happens. He looked down at his chest and nodded his head a few times, meaning, yes, okay, yes, okay. This is nice, but if you don't stop, I will become embarrassed for reasons I don't understand. Like my father usually does, I stopped squeezing the neck before his embarrassment started. Bota was back. He said to me, don't get so happy, Maccabee. It's only temporary. He meant getting sat next to. Eliyahu had brought the cage population to maximum capacity, though. More than one absence from the cage was rare as none. So Eliyahu was effectively the end of the Gurian has to sit next to no one whenever it is possible rule. Bota dropped a cage handbook on the desk of my newest friend's Carol. That's for you, Eili. And I've got something for you, Mr. Berta, said Eliyahu, from Principal Trotsky. Main man said, ha ha ha. Eliyahu handed Bota 2 notes on the office stationery. Bota looked at the first one and said to me, go to the office before detention. I said, my record, Jetty? He said, can't say I know what you're talking about. He said, what does the note say, Mr. Bota? Says, go to the office before detention, Maccabee. Bota went to his desk reading the second note. Then he called Enrico and the janitor over and wrote them one pass. Brodsky had summoned them to fight in the locker room. That had to be it. It seemed so long ago. Standing in the doorway, behind the grumbling, key-clanging monitor, Bota hated that he had to unlock the gate. Just after having locked it, Enrico shouted back to me, don't worry, I won't tell on you, and neither will he. I won't, said the janitor. Soon the beginning of class tone sounded, and all of the cage went quiet again. I touched my neck on the hairs. June had said, show me later then, don't get in trouble. I shivered big. It was almost later. Coke, poem, and pass pad. I yearned for detention.